Welcome back. Today we're going to talk about the SIMGO or SIMGOT, depending on how you pronounce it, the ET142. So that is the one planar, one piezo model, and it is this guy right here. So finally available for purchase, finally released, finally officially launched. So here it is, and you've probably seen it before. Quite a similar shell to EA500, obviously not the same, but the same CNC machining, the same polish, the same material style. It is a very, very nice set to hold in your hand. It says ET142 on the back. Get the logo on the front, says SIMGO on the side. But, I think in a similar style, if you're used to their high-end build quality, 142 is no different. It is a very, very nice set to hold in your hand, to actually look at. You also do get their high-end modular cable. This is the LC7, so high strand count, 2-core cable. With a modular, you get a 4.4 and a 3.5 plugs, and you do get their case to hold all of this together. This is the nozzle card, so this one in its final form ends up shipping with 4 different nozzles. So you get the golden, the blue or the colored, and then you're going to get a red and a black, and we'll talk about those in a minute. But we'll do this one slightly differently. I sort of agree with what HBB talks about and say that there's not that many top-end planar drivers out there. The top-end sets tend to use a very similar driver. ET142 is no different. It's probably using the same driver that other top-end sets have. If it's not the same, it is super similar. And the difference is going to be the tuning and how they get, how they drop down from where they were. Why was there a delay in ET142 being released? The original blue and gold nozzles, those are still included, but those were really tuned at the top end of treble levels for any non-low volume listener. So they developed 2 new nozzles to drop the tuning right into the middle of other top planar sets. So this card right here, you can kind of see the gold and the blue were the original nozzles that reviewers had got on the pre-release set, and those are still included. If you are a treble head or really like kind of an analytical style planar, you still have those options, but the red and the blue will be your new options. And we'll take a look at how these sort of dropped into place. So the gold and the blue are both of them actually graphed very, very similar. I think they were pretty much overlapping. So we'll just show you the gold. And of course, that was what I said. It is at the top level of where a planar should be tuned, kind of at that level. So, a little bit much for people who, aren't used to that much upper range. And if we look at the green, where S12 2024, sort of the reference for tuning for planars, for getting kind of an optimal end-to-end, you can kind of see that these are very, very similar all the way up until about here. But I think with Let Shore's experience, I think their tuning on S12 24 is almost perfect for that particular driver and really maximizing the amount of resolve they get and extension, and having it a more natural style sound to it, timbre to it. So I think this little bump here in the green, the one that's kind of above the rest of them, I think mine just graphs that way in a weird way. It's not really like that. This should actually cut across, and what you should really have is the S12 2024 kind of cutting right through the top end of SIMGO's ET142 black, which is in the blue. So imagine a green line kind of cutting across that way right above the black nozzle, and I think that's how they sit, how I hear them. I think S12 2024 is sort of right above the black. It just has a little bit more upper range. It has a little bit more resolve, and then you have the black, and then you have the red, and they're kind of 2 steps or half steps below S12 2024. And I think that was a great place for ET142 to land, right? You can actually compete head-to-head on single planar tuning with S12 2024, but again, I think Let Shore has the most experience at tuning for that particular driver, the most versions of S12, and I think it's really hard to compete against them head to head. And I would say Timeless went this kind of similar route as well, and you give people 2 options of something similar to S12 in resolve and technicalities, but then give you 2 different options that are below it and more general appealing and warmer and smoother, and that's exactly what you're going to get with the black and the red nozzles. So like I said, they started out with the blue and the gold kind of at the top end of what people would kind of find appealing, or in upper range level. I think it was kind of way up there, and they essentially just dropped down. They gave you two other nozzles that dropped you down right into the middle of the S12s and other popular planar sets. So definitely the right move. Definitely, I'm glad they kind of hit pause on it and gave people the right options. So are the new nozzles better? And I think yes. And I think the most important part of this is not that they didn't just slam some foam into it to bring down that level. To retune it, the nozzle geometry actually changed, and you had the option of foam or no foam. So when we look at these kind of from the side, if you look at them from the top, they look, you can actually see they actually are a little bit different. So the originals are the widest nozzles. So this is the colored and the gold over here. The newer nozzles actually are a little smaller, I think in diameter. From the top, you can kind of see that. But if you look at them from the back, they actually are all a little bit different. So on the bottom, we have the original widest gold and colored, and then you can kind of see the black over here, and then the most restrictive is going to be the red. So that lower level in upper range tuning is going to be the most restrictive here. And maybe you can get a quick look at what the foam is actually. I left the foam in the red and I took it out of the black, so right there. So I would suggest, much like what I said about Timeless, do spend time playing with the foam, without the foam. I can go either way on both of the red and the black, with or without the foam. There's no right answer. It's easy enough to pull it out. Just don't lose it. Don't let it hit the floor or anything, because it's really small and really lightweight. So I will say the black, that is the middle nozzle, is the one that's kind of right for me. And you can actually tweak it with less dense foam if you have an EW300, or no foam, and try it both ways. The red is the lower version, and that might be the more popular choice. And that one, again, that sounds quite good with or without the foam. But the red is kind of down here. This is the one that's going to appeal to people who may have RD-T10 Pro, SO8, those guys who were looking for a set that was more tuned, or even MP145, that set that was more tuned closer to a really nice high-end dynamic driver. That is going to be your red. The black one right in the middle is going to be the one that's sort of halfway between a full-on S12 2024 and right in between. So you have that trade-off of still a nice, warm, smooth sound, but a little bit more resolve than the red, but not quite the resolve of S12 2024. So yeah, I think they picked the three nice levels. I think these are three really nice options for a planar to hear the range of tunings that you can get in a planar. And I said the exact same thing on Timeless 2. Having three options, four options, they both essentially have four nozzles. And you kind of almost get the same thing with this one. ET142, you have two nozzles, which are the high-end one, and then you have two, which are a little bit lower. Timeless gave you two options on ear gain. That is a really unique way to do it as well, different than how ET142 did it. But, again, I think part of what's special about these two sets, Timeless and ET142, is you do have options. If you aren't into super bright planars, you have at least two options, which bring them both down to more reasonable levels. So why buy ET142 over S12 2024 or Timeless 2? I think the black nozzle can be tweaked close enough to S12, but it's more relaxed in treble. Even if you pull the foam out, it's still going to be a little bit more relaxed. That is really S12's specialty, that treble extension, and refined over all of the S12 versions. The trade-off with ET142 is going to be a little bit easier to listen to. You're going to get a little bit less resolve, but maybe for some people that is going to be more attractive and more appealing than the original S12 2024 tuning, which I actually love, but I understand that's going to be not as appealing to everyone else. So the red nozzle, again, this one is even a step further away from S12 2024. The red's going to be better than Timeless 2's Gold Leaf. So everyone tended to review the Timeless 2 with the Gold Leaf, kind of the lower tuning, the less treble tuning of Timeless 2. My personal feeling was the red one, and can we actually see the red? Yeah, so the red one on ET142 is the most restrictive one here. And again, you can play with the foam, without the foam, and you'll get slightly different versions. But I do like the red nozzle a little bit better than the gold leaf. I thought the gold leaf on Timeless 2 was okay. I think a lot of people said it was just kind of okay. I think the red one is a little bit better for me. I like it. It's more of a blend of, and it sounds less over dampened than the gold leaf. Again, you could probably play with the foam on the gold leaf one as well and get it to a little bit better as well. But kind of right out of the box, I do like the red on the ET142. Smoother, less upper range tuning. S12 doesn't have this option, so this is something that you're really only going to find on S12, or that you're only going to find on ET142 or Timeless 2. You're not going to get that on S12. It's kind of more in line with where S08 was. So is it better than MP145 Hadiza set? So I think it's close enough in concept, and the fit is certainly better. But if the idea was a more relaxed version of S12 tuning, still had that planar technicalities, still had that resolve of a planar set, but just, pull it back a little bit so it was more easier to listen to for most people, that's essentially what you're getting on these two nozzles. So I would say maybe the tuning isn't perfectly dead on. It's not a drop-in replacement of MP145, but it's going to be close enough in concept for people who don't want to deal with the MP145 shell. I think this is going to be close enough and accomplish the same style tuning that one did, just in a nicer looking shell and an easier to fit shell. So we'll talk about some rankings here and some of my thoughts on how the three sets actually lined up. And I think still the best single planar tuning is going to be S12 2024. For me, that one still is the reference of how a planar should sound from end to end, all the way down in the sub bass, through the mid bass, all the way through air and extension. That is Let Shore's expertise and all their experience in tuning that particular driver kind of comes through on that particular set. So for those of you who are super planar fans, that is still my reference, the one I go back to. It is a very, very nice set. And I would kind of rank that over ET142, the black nozzle. And I'll say that they're kind of close, but end to end, especially in the upper end, and the way that this has been a little bit more relaxed, I will still give the credit to S12 2024 on just, if you just want one single planar tuning, that is the best example of that particular driver. I think that is still that set. But the best single planar tuning for treble sensitive people, those who don't need all that upper end of S12 2024, don't care as much about how far it extends. I think ET142 Black is going to be a little better for those folks than S12 2024. Best brighter tuning. And again, I kind of go back to Timeless 2 Silver Bullet. I really like that nozzle. I like the flexibility of changing the foams and pushing the foams in. I think it gave you a lot of options in that style of tuning, and I will take that style of tuning over the gold or the blue. I think, I don't think people gave that one credit enough and didn't play with it enough to really hear what it can do. And it was really the nozzle where I had the most flexibility, where I could really fine tune it for how I liked it and really get it closer to S12 2024, or I could put a little bit more foam into it and bring it down in almost in the same way that ET142 does. So yeah, I really appreciate the way they had two different nozzle sets and two different gains. I thought Timeless 2 did a couple really, really unique things that probably didn't get as much credit as it should. And the Silver Bullet for me was one of those things. And I will take that over the gold and the blue here. But the best planar tune, like a dynamic driver, I think the red version of this nozzle over here, the most restrictive one that brings down the treble level, I think that is probably the best version of that style tuning. I would take this ET142 over T10 Pro, over S08. I will take it over the Timeless 2 flat nozzles, the flowers as I call them. The most flexible with the foam, I'll still kind of give it to ET142. Even though Timeless 2, you can do the exact same thing. You can pull the foam out, listen to it, put it back in. Easy enough, but I'll just kind of give the edge. I think the way it works on these particular nozzles, I'll just give it a slight little edge. But either way, if you have ET142, if you have Timeless 2, please take the time to listen to them with and without the foam. On Timeless 2, you can move the foam. If you're playing with the bullets, you can move it deeper into the bullet or move it shallower into the bullet. On this one, you can essentially just pull them in and out. You don't have that much flexibility, but I do love kind of the way that ET142 essentially give you three brackets, three distinct levels of upper range, and then with the foam, it's going to slightly, move them slightly up, and it's just a really small step. It's not a lot of foam. A lot of it is going to be out here as well. It's going to catch some air just in the same way that it does on Timeless 2, but really, really nice to have three distinct levels, and then you can move them slightly, just to fine tune them just by removing the foam. Again, I think on both sets, I think that was kind of one of my favorite features as well, and I think both sets actually pull it off pretty well. So best shell and cable, yeah, I think easily I like the ET142 shell even over S12 2024. That's a pretty nice shell, but the cable and the shell combo, I think I'm kind of down with SIMGO or SIMGOT. I think both of them are actually really nice, and I tend to use LC7 not just on the SIMGO sets, but on other sets. I just kind of leave it on my desk. But kind of to wrap up, I would still say that S12 2024 is the reference single planar tuning, is the one I go back to how planar should sound. But are you going to have fear of missing out if you pick up Timeless 2 or ET142 and don't have S12? And I'll kind of say no. Just simply play with the nozzle options, play with the foams. As I said with Timeless 2, sometimes the options, having more options to play with, three distinct tunings, is going to outweigh the single planar tuning that you may not prefer. And having the two lower tunings on ET142, having three different versions of it or four different versions of it on Timeless 2, those options may outweigh the benefit, have a bigger benefit than having just one single set that everyone says is the best single planar reference. Sometimes options do outweigh the king. So thank you guys again for tuning in, and I will see you next time.